Hey guys, thanks for coming out for Million Dollar Keynote. This is the framework. This is an overview of what Million Dollar Keynote is, but also how it impacts your speaking, how it impacts your income, your influence, all of those things, because things have really shifted in the last, I'd say 10 years especially. And it's not just about the internet. People will say, well, the internet's changed everything. Well, it has, and certainly what is considered a speaking venue has shifted. We'll talk about that some tonight. But the ability to contact, connect, and be involved with people is greater than ever before. There's also more noise than ever before. So we've really got to focus on making sure that our message is clear, that it connects with our audience, that we're drawing our audience to us instead of always having to chase them. And we want to make sure that we're using content that is really impactful, that we're not simply putting together a talk or putting together information, that we want to make sure that what we're putting together is really going to make a tremendous difference in the lives of people. And it's not about us being impressed with it. It's not about thinking I've got a great speech or I've got a great keynote. It's about knowing that it's valuable for the people who are going to be receiving that. It's not to be about us at the end of the talk, that people should not just say, hey, Cece did a good job, Summer did a good job, Shelly did a good job, but instead that they should say, yeah, hey, Shelly did a great job, but what I really loved was when she said X, because that's the minute that our content, it becomes memorable, it becomes portable, it becomes shareable. And that's super important if we're going to make a big time difference. So my name is Paul Evans. I don't do a ton of background information. I'll give you a little bit of that in just a second. But what you're going to see tonight is we're going to look at the old school speaking model, change in the model, the shift, the gift, and the lift. So we'll be moving fairly quickly, at least again, quickly for me being a Southerner. So, began speaking at the age of 12. That was my first speech. Much to do, much to love, much to hope for. I still have the actual 3x5 cards and a photograph of me giving the speech in my light blue leisure suit. That thing was not flammable. Age 16, I was actually getting paid to speak. By age 24, I had a radical shift in my life where my wife passed away. She actually died in my arms. Our son was 5 weeks old at the time. And I took that message, and that's really when I began speaking in a more traditional fashion, what we might call professional speaking, things along those lines. I've given over 2,500 presentations. I've helped more than 35,000 people become public speakers or strengthen their speaking. I don't consider myself a public speaker. I mean, a professional speaker. I really consider myself a conversational speaker. If we were sitting down in a restaurant right now and you were just sitting there listening to me talk, this is exactly what it would sound like. It'd have the same inflection, same tone, same speed, same energy for the most part, except it's at night, so I'm calmed down a little bit. Whereas if this was in the morning about 8 a.m., it'd be off the charts. And my keynote fee is $10,000, and I'm a non-celebrity. That means I've not really done anything famous. I'm not known. I don't have a lot of awards. I'm not a member of any speaking association. I'm not a member of speaker bureaus. It's just that I position myself in my markets in a way that allows me to put this fee out there and it be accepted, right? So there's no magic to it at all. It's just really part of the framework that I've created that you'll learn about tonight. You will need pen, paper, something physical. You may be taking notes on your computer. That's okay. But chances are if you've got everything up, you're just not going to get it all. Everything's not going to be on the screen. And I'll have some screens that cover things, but a lot of the notes you'll just have to write down. And I'm not really big on repeating things. Like if somebody was giving a keynote, you wouldn't hold up your hand and stop the keynote and say, hey, wait a minute, I missed that point. You would turn to your neighbor and maybe get the point, if you weren't really paying attention. But the truth is, if there's content that we're trying to learn about and we're wanting to grow from, we should simply pay attention. So let's do that and make sure you're taking notes. If you want to close down other stuff, that's cool. If you want to tweet, if you want to be on Facebook, all of that is fine with me too, because I don't know that you're doing that. So again, we'll be moving quick. There's two anchors of MDK, Million Dollar Keynote, two anchors. Number one is impact. That's what it's really about. And when I say $1 million keynote, yes, it can be about $1 million business structure. You can actually use this framework and create $1 million business structure, focusing on taking your expertise, your knowledge, packaging that content into a keynote and allowing that to attract people to that message that you then monetize. But it also means this to me. It means that your audience feels like they got $1 million content. And if this is part of your presentation style, they also feel like $1 million. I mean, at the end of a talk, don't you want your people to feel like that content was unreal? And don't you want them to feel great about the possibility of applying it or taking the next step with it or whatever the call to action is? So impact is about $1 million level. And then income. Again, if you want to use this framework and you want to create an income from it, that's great as well. Quick little sidebar. I'm not the guy that's out there saying, hey, I can make you rich. I think that if you decide to do something with this and really apply yourself, can you be wealthy through speaking? Absolutely. You can be wealthy through speaking, but that's up to you. I'm not going to force you to do that. It has to be something that you desire and that you want to pursue. I think one of the dangers that we see in the marketplace in general today is people out there saying you can do X, Y, and Z and you can become rich, and people get involved in that dream, but they don't really have the drive to do that. I want you to have the drive first as you chase that dream if this is something that you want to do. Impact means our responsibility. Income is the result. If we will take serious our responsibility in front of the audience and we want to get paid for it, then income will be the result of our responsibility. Here's how serious I take speaking. If you are speaking to a room of 100 people for 1 hour and you do a bad job, you did not waste an hour. You wasted 100 hours. Those people could have been out serving the poor. They could have been building shelter for somebody. They could have been going and learning something else that would impact the lives of other people, right? So our responsibility is to present in such a way, such powerful content, such impactful ideas and content, and even part of that is our presentation style, that it was great for them to be there. That there may not have been any other place in that moment that was better for them to be than with you, listening to you, taking notes, and then applying it. That's a massive responsibility, but I believe that it's real. If we take ourselves that seriously, even if we're playful, even if you're funny, even if you're not very serious, but you take the responsibility of your message and your impact that seriously, that income is the result. And that can be defined any way that you want to. I define income, as money. Others want to define it as appreciation or outcome of the audience. The audience goes out and applies it and become better. I think that's a great result. So that may be your income as well. So focus on that for yourself, define it for yourself. But there's two problems. Number one, most of the time we don't have a clear system to follow when it comes to really laying out things, what we should be doing, how we should be doing it. And secondly, it's extremely difficult to get booked solid. I'm going to redefine that tonight and give you a different look at that. And so far, everybody that's heard this presentation so far has really loved the new definition of how to get booked. And I hope this will open your eyes, be a breakthrough for you, and allow you to create the opportunity to impact your audience over and over and over again, but also give you the opportunity to control your calendar, which I think is important as well. So first of all, the shift. This is what's happened in speaking the last few years. The old school way is there was the speaker that stood at the podium, right? That was it. That was where it took place, period. Nowadays, everybody's a speaker. Everybody is a speaker, because being a speaker is not simply being on a podium. Being a speaker is broadcasting a message that an audience receives. Nowadays, because of Twitter and Facebook, everybody is a speaker. Sure, they may be typing it out. We may want to say that they're a writer, but they've got a message that they are broadcasting to an audience. Sometimes they should not have broadcasted. Sometimes they should not have pressed post. They should not have pressed send, but they did, and their message is out there to the world. Everybody's a speaker today. It's a huge shift. Well, let me go back to that for a second. People will say that they're scared of public speaking, but they speak publicly every day on Facebook, every day, and said stuff that they probably should have been scared of, but they weren't. They were bold. They were confident. And then they're like, I can't get on stage. I'm scared. I'm like, you should be scared, because you don't want to be saying that mess from the stage. Meetings used to be full, used to be packed. happening all the time, really pretty easy to get booked because demand was so great. Then the economy shifted here, at least in the States. The economy shifted. Meetings started decreasing for a couple of reasons. Number one was the actual finances. Number two was the judgment placed on companies that were spending hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars for meetings. And so they began to shrink. But, things have shifted. You can go out there and search for meetings, or you can host your own meeting. You can fill your own arena if you want to, but there's not as many meetings today. Now, I'm not saying that to be discouraging, because I think that you can create your own venues today and affect far more people in the average day than you would in a year of staying on the road and meeting live in venues. I still think they're important, but I think they're a small element of your speaking business. And then getting booked. The old way to get booked is that you did a good job. You got you an agent, you got you a representation with a bureau, and they did a lot of legwork to book you. But things have shifted because it's a lot like the publishing field. There are publishing companies that will definitely publish your book, right? And they'll put in some time, energy, and effort. But usually, in order to get published in today's world, it really helps if you've got an audience. So if you've got 5, 10, 15,000 people on Twitter, if you've got a Facebook page with 20,000 people, that person that has that audience, even if he or she is a lesser writer, has a better chance of getting published than the person who is a great writer but has no audience at all. I know that doesn't seem right, doesn't seem fair, but it's a shift in the publishing industry. Well, it's a shift in the speaking industry as well. So today we're primarily in charge of getting ourselves booked. I've got an agent, but you know what my agent wants? Leads. Now, great for closing deals, for negotiating fees. If you're uncomfortable with saying that, hey, my keynote fee is $10,000, and they go, well, wait a minute, we don't have a budget for that. How can we work on this? Well, your agent can take care of all of that for you. So that's a major shift. You're kind of booking yourself today, whereas in the old world, the old school speaking, you got other people to book you. Now, I actually do teach something when I'm doing my intensives and I'm working my Amplify group that shows how to get other people to book you. But for the most part, if you're just starting out, you have to book yourself unless you use a different recipe than what the world is using out there. Let me stop just for a second. Out of everything that has been said so far, is there anything you disagree with, anything you do agree with, anything that connects, anything that you want to know more about? All that was pretty rapid fire, but just kind of a setup on the shift. Probably nothing up to this point revolutionary, just some ideas and some concepts. All right, Bill says, yeah, I've noticed a big difference in going from getting booked to having to book yourself. I found that extremely difficult, but I'm learning how to do it. It makes a big, big difference when you accept it. All right, Shirley says, I've found that the whole concept of being a speaker, I used to run away from. And now that I'm seeing everything as a podium, everything as an outlet for speaking, it makes a big, big difference on that standpoint. And I think that I can now begin to speak a lot more boldly because I'm able to see the venue differently. Good. I love that. All right. So now the gift. We live in a great age. We live in an age where content is so available. We do not have to worry about sitting down and brainstorming a message from scratch. All we've got to do is research it. We don't have to go to the library. We just type it in and there it is. Now, having said that, I believe that the most important aspect of speaking is your content, especially if you are an informational speaker, that you are a teacher, that you have a process, that you have a framework, you have a system, you have a signature sequence. If you've got any of that, your content by far is the most important. And your audience needs that solid content. See, here's the deal. Let's say that you lost 50 pounds in 2 months. We're making this up. but you did it and it was safe. It was 100% safe. And you also knew that if anybody followed your program, that anybody could do it. And so this is advertised. Come and listen to so-and-so. Learn how to lose 50 pounds in just 2 months without drugs, dangerous side effects, only eating healthy, and without risking your health in any form. I mean, that sounds outrageous, but go with me. Let's say that you showed up, and sure enough, it was step by step. And you listened and you agreed and you knew it was true. If the speaker was boring, would you really care? I mean, it might bother you a little bit, but if the speaker was monotone, but had content that would show you how to lose 50 pounds, if you showed up to somebody who said in 30 minutes or in an hour, I can show you step by step how to make $1 million in the next 30 days. And it was true. It wasn't even a setup. It was true. You wouldn't care if they were interesting or not because the content would be so solid. If your content is solid, it gives you so much more confidence because you know that even if you're not on that day, the audience is impacted. The audience was able to be changed. The audience received stuff that was good. Secondly, clients. And this is a big shift going from all those meetings to not as many meetings. The difference today is that you get to create your own audience. This is massive. This is a big shift. And if I could encourage you to do anything when it comes to being a speaker, trainer, teacher, seminar leader, it's that you build your own audience. Here's the difference. If you have a band like Aerosmith who goes out on tour, they go from venue to venue to venue to venue. They've got to book up each city and they've got to make sure they've got enough tickets sold, etc. That's old school speaking. You just go out and find the next venue, right? New is something like the group Alabama. I'll use them since that's where I'm from. The group Alabama built them a theater. They don't go out on tour. They show up at the theater. They tell people the dates that they're available. And what happens? People buy tickets and they show up. They have built an audience that comes to them instead of them going to the audience. So when you take on this model, whether it's through an email list, a Facebook group, Facebook page, Twitter, which is, I think, one of the hardest ways to build an actual audience that pays attention. I think email list is by far the best way to build an audience that you can gather their attention. So you think about it this way. Let's say that you had 500 people on an email list. And tomorrow morning you get up and decide that tomorrow night you're going to host a webinar. You're going to speak on the topic of X. And you mail your people. And 30 of those decide to buy a ticket. Boom. That's a lot easier than going, you know what, I want to host an event. Let me go out and try to find me some meeting planners. And let me see if I can contact some of them. And let's see if they'll hire me. And let's see if I can go find an audience. So when you attract the audience, when the audience is in your venue, it makes it so much easier. Number 3 is calendar. This is when you start to control it. Instead of getting booked, you book yourself. This is a major shift in the new economy of speaking. You can sit down right now in this moment if you wanted to leave the webinar. You can sit down right now and you can plan your speaking calendar. If you want to do live events, which I've got a live event coming up, if you want to do webinars like I'm doing right now, if you want to do teleseminars, you can book them all right now. I could decide that next year, every Thursday, I'm going to do a webinar, or every other Thursday, I'm going to do a webinar. And then if somebody calls in and says, hey, Paul, we need you to come speak at this event, I can move the webinar, or I could say, you know what, I'm already booked on that date. Because when you set your own calendar, you're booked. How's it look if somebody comes to your site and you're a speaker and there's no bookings? How's that? You think that looks cool? No, people are like, nobody's booking him. What if you book your own events and your calendar is full? I wouldn't overdo it and do like 5 things a day. But if every other week you had an event that you're hosting, it's your webinar, but you take up that slot on your calendar, you're booked. You're not available unless you choose to be available. Your audience that you've built, that you've attracted, comes to your events, and you're a speaker. I know that this does not sound right. I know that most people don't even teach this because in our minds, we think if I'm not standing on a stage, it doesn't count. But here's the thing. Let's say that you got a message for the world. What's the chance of you getting booked in the next month in London, in Paris, in Zimbabwe, in Moscow, in Beijing? What's the chance? I don't know. Some of you may be like super easy, and others are going, there's no chance. What chance is there of you attracting an audience in the next 30 days that has people from London, Moscow, Zimbabwe, Beijing, wherever, France, Paris, Rome? It doesn't matter, right? You can be global within a month, but it's hard to do that going and hunting, chasing engagements. If you decide to book yourself, then you've got those dates locked up, and it allows you to attract your audience just like the group Alabama does. Hey, here are the dates that I'm holding my event. I'd love for you to come. And that radically shifts. You're now in control of your calendar. You're no longer at the mercy of a meeting planner. That's huge. That makes a big, big difference. And you also get to control your availability, and it allows you to negotiate more powerfully. And number 4 is cash flow. I definitely believe in getting paid as a speaker. Sometimes people will say, just speak for free and try to sell stuff from the back of the room, etc. I think that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I want to go out, and if I'm going to stand on stage, if I'm going to travel, if I'm going somewhere, I want there to be some income involved right off the bat, kind of guaranteed. But again, there's all sorts of things in play with negotiation, with budgets, etc. If you decide to control your own calendar, if you host your own events, boom, you can do something that's pretty wild, right? So for my upcoming event, where I'm taking all the framework that I'm teaching tonight and going deep, just going super deep with it, with everybody in attendance, it's only like $297 this time to be part of that. But that's still like a ticket price, right? So it's 2 days. They come, they go deep, and they actually install all the information while we're there. So they get it done. They're not just in there listening. It's a workshop. All right, so that's one of my cash flow mechanisms. You can have the exact same thing. You host your own event, you charge for it. Host your own webinars, charge for it. And these numbers that I'm throwing out, I'm not doing this as a hope builder. You see this in a lot of marketing stuff, and I hate it. It's kind of like so-and-so didn't do anything and made $1 gajillion. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm trying to do is to give you an idea of some possibilities. Let's take webinars, for example. Myself and Carrie Wilkerson, those of you who have been with me before may know she's my business partner, also my best friend. And she and I did a webinar. This one was actually about 2 years ago. And we did a webinar to sell into our engagements. We had 8 engagements that we were doing, and people could buy a ticket for all of those. We held a 1-hour webinar for that, and the end result is I think it was right around $83,000 for that. Right? So I stayed home. She stayed home. She lives in another state. We did everything online. And there was 83,000, so we split that. So that was 40 each for 8 engagements. That was all right. I didn't ever have to leave the house. I didn't have to negotiate with anyone. And each engagement was about an hour. I don't think that was too bad, right? So you get to control your cash flow. You get to set up your monetization. You get to call the shots on that. So that's a big part of the gift that we live in today's world. If you want to go over to PayPal, set up an account if you don't already have one, and send out a link on Facebook and invite people to an event that you're going to do later this week, somebody might buy, right? You couldn't do that a handful of years ago. Big shift, really makes a big, big difference. All right, so what's been most helpful so far out of everything that we've covered? What's been either the most helpful, the most eye-opening? What are some of the things that kind of struck you that maybe you've not thought about before? Type those in. Max says, controlling my own calendar. I've never even thought about that. I've always thought that I had to go out and get booked. Charlene says, I've never thought about being able to say that me booking my own event, like a webinar or teleseminar, could count as speaking. I always saw that as training or teaching, but not as speaking. So that's a great point, Charlene, because most of the time we narrowly define what speaking is. Shelly says to have one webinar to sell the set of 8 others. All right, so let me take that a little bit farther, Shelly, if you don't mind. Is if I go and speak for an insurance company, and I tend to do that. It's my area of focus because of the loss of my wife. And so I speak to insurance companies. I can go to a company and can keynote an event or do a training session, and they may say, what else have you got? Well, you know what? I could take your whole company through my productivity training called 5 Stones. What is that? That's 5 more engagements, 5 more bookings right there, right? It makes a big, big difference. Bill says, I haven't thought about extra cash flow. I hadn't thought about it as selling tickets. I've only thought about keynote fees. All right, so that's a big shift, right? It makes a difference to shift in that way. Okay, so let's talk about the lift. How do we do this? How do we lift off with this? How do we engage? Oh, went one too far. So basically the framework is, with MDK, there's your message and there's marketing, there's monetization. With your message, it's about your content, your confidence, your connection. And we're going to go back through all of these. With your marketing, it's about attracting, not chasing, but attracting, automating the process so you don't have to do everything manually, and then your apps like your website and things along those lines. And then when you monetize, you want to get paid. That's your keynote fee, which most people are familiar with. You want to create products that are based on your message. The whole concept to me of having a $1 million keynote is that keynote is the framework for everything else that you do. Now listen, this example, for most of you, you will know it inside out if you're familiar at all with Dave Ramsey. In fact, just type in yes if you know who Dave Ramsey is, the financial guy. Just type in yes in the Q&A. All right? Yeah, a bunch of yeses coming in. Good, 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 good. If there's one thing that Dave is known for, it's his 6 baby steps. I'm saying 6. I'm hoping it's 6. Maybe more. His baby steps. If you listen to him speak somewhere, he's going to mention the baby steps. If you listen to him on the radio, guess what you're going to hear? Baby steps. If you buy his book, guess what's going to be in that book? Baby steps. If you buy his course, his home study course, guess what's going to be in the home study course? Baby steps. Guess what? If you go to a 3-day workshop with him, what a majority of that workshop's going to be about? Baby steps. He's got $1 million keynote. He has a message that everything else flows out of. All right, so it begins with our message. For me and life insurance companies, my message is called Super Agent. I go in and share my story. I talk about meeting Sherry. I talk about her and I having Sam, and really the pregnancy was awful. And so that whole scene is pretty rough. We end up going back home after Sam is born, seemingly the perfect family. Sherry passes away, and my agent was unbelievable. And let me just give you a quick sidebar story. When I went to the funeral home, I don't know anything about funeral homes. I don't know anything. Nobody close to me had ever died, ever. And so I went to the funeral home, and when I arrived, the funeral home director was there, and he said, Mr. Evans, I want you to know that your life insurance agent, Ken, is called. And he said that there's no reason for you to be concerned about finances at all, that everything is covered and handled, and you do not need to be concerned about how to account for today, which I thought was pretty nice. But what happened next was awesome. He said, and your agent said that if in any way I tend to help you lean toward a decision, that if I leverage your grief in any way to cause you to buy something that you would not have otherwise bought, or I sell you into a higher package that you otherwise would not have wanted, your agent said he would come and give me a personal visit. Now, I don't know if that's even legal, but I loved it, right, as a client. So I go in and speak about this is my message. This is my core message and framework that everything flows from. So you got to have that message that is your anchor point, that thing that you're confident about, that aspect that you can't wait to share. So I was working recently with Shauna, and we sat down for really about an hour and a half. She went through what I call a signature session. So in our work together, Paul was able to help me leverage my story, pull out a complete keynote. Before, I was unclear about what to say, how to say it. Now I have a solid keynote with a killer open and close and content that fits me perfect. My audiences are thrilled with the result. That's what you need. I'm not even saying working with me. I'm just saying you've got to get that message out in a way that you feel like it's solid. Your open and close, you feel like it's killer. The content fits you. It's one of the big problems out there. If you decide to work with somebody, you're going to find people that are going to try to make you fit into a style. Nope, you need to remain who you are. Take your strengths, accentuate that. If you're a hyperactive, be a hyperactive. If you're shy, it's fine to be shy. You just want to leverage that content, leverage what you know. So you don't have to worry at all about becoming something that you're not. In fact, I highly discourage that. What I would say about your message is, what is it that you must share? What is it that you can't shut up about? What is it that you can't wait to talk about? And let that be your cause, let that be your message, and that everything flows from that. And you also need to look at your marketing. So what I try to do is make sure that's all in alignment. So Life Insurance Super Agent Keynote. So I've got my Keynote message there on my webpage that works on the page. It works on iPad. It works on a phone. I also have my one sheet that's right there that if people come to my site, they can opt in. And they immediately get my one sheet that also has other messages that I share. And what's happening when they opt in, when they request that, they're now on my email list. What am I doing? I'm building my audience that I can email at any time and invite them to any event that I have. And I'm building this connection, and I'm able to showcase what my expertise is, what my message is. But it comes down to marketing. Now, again, with the marketing, we talked about attraction. We want to pull people toward us. We can do that on Facebook. We can do that through our blog. But the key is that our message is out there. It's consistent, and it's all the time. So let me give you a couple of my other messages that I proclaim a lot. With speaking, I'll say, speak with passion, or just leave me a note. All right. With success or achievement, I'll say success is not an accident. What I'm implying, you're going to have to work. So your message, you go out and you broadcast it and you market it. You don't do anything sleazy. You don't have to do anything crazy. You just start contacting people. So let's say that you've got your website set up, you've got your one sheet set up, and let's say that you love to speak to moms. Well, who has a lot of moms right now? Facebook. Be pretty easy to find your market, find your audience. Let's say that you're going to focus on managers. Who has a lot of managers right now? LinkedIn. Go over to LinkedIn, find a group of managers, join the group, start going down one by one, just contacting in a casual way to see when their next training is. Pretty light, pretty easy, not that hard to do, a little bit time consuming unless you get a virtual assistant or somebody like that to do it for you. But for the most part, it can be done. So you've got your message that you now frame in your marketing. You attract them. You automate it by using things like I mentioned, your opt-in list, your autoresponder, so that people sign up and then immediately the information goes out to them. And if you decide, this is what I like to do, I like to have automated follow-up messages that continue to showcase that message and anchor it with them. So Carrie says, I knew my lack of dedicated speaking site and one sheet was holding me back. No more with Paul's apps. That's actually the whole process or system of getting your speaker's website, your one sheet, your autoresponder, all that set up. I'm looking forward to getting booked more and building a serious contact base. So that contact base, what would be another word for it? Audience. Number 3 is to monetize. You now take this knowledge and you put it in a framework that is either going to be paid, where you get paid to actually speak. It's going to be a product, which you see examples of on this page, or it's going to be about proximity. It's going to be about you coaching or consulting. But it's still based on your message, because here's what happens. When you give that message, then people want to know how to do it. So actually, when I look at a presentation or a keynote, I see that as information. When I see a product, I see that as installation. They want to take the message, they want to install it in their life. And then with proximity, with coaching, to me, that's usually transformation. Can people buy a product and be transformed? Absolutely. But the greatest transformation happens when somebody's helping you personally. So with monetization, you got paid as a speaker. You've got your product where you take your information, you distill it, you make it easier to access and actually install into people's lives. Because if I'm giving an hour keynote on 5 stones, that can't be installed. It's an overview. If they come in and take the 5 stones training course and do the exercises and apply the training, it's now installed. And then they go out and do it and they're transformed. But let's say they go out and they stall and they don't have discipline. And they call me and say, Paul, I want you to coach me in this. And I start cracking the whip. And I start saying, hey, we're going to hold you accountable. Then they end up being transformed if, they actually take action. So that's really the overall process there. So you monetize it. You got your message, you got your marketing, you got your monetization. So here is what Jay said. Paul mentored me through the creation and packaging of my IP, my intellectual property. He helped me create my signature product, and he showed me how to upgrade my programs. I will easily double my income this year. It makes a big difference. Speaking is not just about getting paid for the speech. That will probably be the lowest amount of income that you make from speaking. Your yearly income, the lowest amount will probably be the actual speech itself given on a stage. Now your product sales are going to be super high. Now, if you decide to buy in all the way mentally and say you're going to host your own events and that is your speaking fees, that may be number 1. But if you're talking about going out at live venues and standing on stage, it'll be one of the lowest amounts of income of your overall speaking business. If you decide to do a product, that's going to be pretty high. And if you decide to do coaching and consulting, that will be a high amount as well. So that's kind of the way that framework works overall. So here is the $1 Million Keynote framework. It's your message, your marketing, your monetization. With your content, you move from dull to dynamic and you supply a pill. It's what is the cure for what ails your audience. With confidence, you want to move from shaky to solid. This happens when you're skilled. Now, you should be able to get confidence from the content itself, but you should also get it because you're practicing. Listen, if you're a speaker, you should be talking all the time. You should be in the car talking. You should be working through your material. You should be sharing your content to the dashboard because that's going to move you from shaky to solid. It's going to give you skill. And then connection. This is when you thrill. You want to move from untied to united. You want the audience with you. They feel you. They're connected with you. Then there's marketing. You want to attract. You want to move from hunting to hooking. And you base that on need. When people are out searching the internet or they're out looking at magazines, what do they all tend to gravitate toward? Their need. You think about the front of a magazine. Let's say it's got 10 article listings. Which one do you go after? The one you need the most, the one you want the most? You don't go, well, I'm going to start reading this magazine from page 1, just work my way through. Can't wait to read the editorial letters. We don't usually do that. Then automate. This is speed. So need to speed. And you're going to move from doing things manually, making a bunch of calls, trying to follow up all the time, to putting people in a system that follows up automatically. And then your apps. This is your leads. This is how you generate leads. It's from being pieced together, like you got your website, but you don't have a video on it, or you've got your video, but you don't have a website, or you've got your website and you don't have a one sheet. So you want to move from pieced to purposed. So when the message is the catalyst, everything starts fitting together. And if somebody says, hey, you ought to write an article on such and such, put it on your blog, you're like, nope, that's not my purpose. My purpose is this message. So your apps are conformed to the purpose that you have. And then monetize, paid. This is your platform, paid. Move from free to fee. Your products inform. Now, even as I mentioned earlier, I like my other terms a little bit better of information, installation, transformation. So I got transform still over here in proximity. But your products inform. They put it inside people. You want to move from shallow to deep. Not to hurt anybody's feelings. But the truth is, an hour keynote, for the most part, is going to be shallow. Now, it may impact people deeply in their heart, but it's hard for somebody to listen to somebody for an hour, listen to a speak for an hour, and go out and apply that message perfectly. But a product allows them to go deep. Then proximity, move from far to near. When you're on stage, even if you're in front of an audience, you're still pretty far from them. It's a complete one-sided conversation. Yes, you may be reading the audience, you may be reacting to the audience, they may have a silent conversation back to you, but really you're in control. You're very distant from them relationally. In proximity and coaching and consulting, you come very near to them. You make that shift. So that's the $1 Million Keynote framework overall and how you apply it to your business. So the question is, where are you? When it comes to this, do you need most help with your message? Do you need most help with your marketing? Do you need most help with your monetization? A lot of people I talk to are like, hey, my message really isn't clear. And other people I'll talk to say, you know what? I got my message down. And I'll go, all right, give me your message. Well, I like to talk about such and such and such. And they start floating. It's not tight. They don't know what their points are. They don't know what they're going to really be sharing. They've just got an idea of what they like to share, but it's not a true message, not a true cause. Maybe you need the most help with your marketing. Maybe you need the most help with monetization. You've actually got a good message, you just don't know how to market it, or you don't know how to monetize it. So type in what you need the most help with. Where do you think you're stuck the most? Is it with your message, with your marketing, with your monetization? Just type that in. All right, we've got message, and I won't mention your name in case you're scared of typing in. Message. Somebody else says monetization, specifically the products. I'm getting paid to speak, but I don't have any products. Another says message. I'm all over the board. Another says marketing. I'm not really concerned about how much I make, but I would like to get my message out there. Excellent. Another says skill. I think I've got my message. I'm not very skilled in delivering it. Another says proximity. I would like to learn more about how to take my message and actually coach from it. All right, good guys, good thoughts. Good. I appreciate you sharing that. It's not always easy to do. It's not always easy to share that. So where do we go from here? What are we going to do about this? I'm going to give you two options, and which option you take probably depends on where you are and where you want to go next. So where to go from here? A lot of people like to do my velocity call. It's 10 to 15 minutes, and we talk about where you are, and we just see where you want to go. And if you want to work together, or if we're a fit, if let's say that one of you want to work on your message, and you're like, Paul, yeah, that's what I want to focus on. What can I do for us to work together on message? Or if we can't do it one-on-one, what product do you have? And if none of that fits, where can you direct me? Now this is what this is all about, is for us to figure out where you are and what's going to be done next. So you get crystal clear about what's possible for you, your impact, income, and influence. I discovered the number one thing that's stopping you if there's a holdback. Now, some of you already said, it's my message that's holding me back, or my marketing's holding me back. So that'll be a pretty easy discovery. An action plan. What are we going to do to move you from where you are, to where you want to where you want to be? We'll do that in 15 minutes as well. And then customized direction for your new leverage business, or customized direction just for your message. I'm not all about, hey, you got to conform to all these steps. You may only have one of the steps that you really want to cover. That's totally cool with me. I'm not bothered by that at all. You'll leave excited. You'll be confident. You'll be assured. You'll feel good about where you are. Even in that 10 to 15 minutes, I know that sounds like a short amount of time, but it really works out extremely well. So what you want to do is you want to go to milliondollarkeynote.com/session. And this is free. I'm not charging anything for it. And even on the call in 10 to 15 minutes, I'm not going to be selling you anything. I'm not going to be like, hey, guess what? I got 15 minutes. I'm about to show you the goods. What I'm going to do is figure out if we are fit, if you want to go farther, how I can help you best. a lot of people I've sent over to Amazon and recommended a book. I mean, that's about as dangerous as it gets. And other people have decided to work one-on-one and, go the full route. Totally up to you. There'll be no pressure involved at all. So milliondollarkeynote.com/session. So that's option one. Option two is the $1 Million Keynote Intensive. This is coming up pretty soon. If you'll go to milliondollarkeynote.com/MDKI, milliondollarkeynote.com, MDKI. I'm hosting a 2-day event that I'm going through the entire framework, every aspect of message, marketing, and monetization. When you leave, you will have your keynote in hand, but you'll also have a complete framework, because what we're going to do is not simply say, all right, your keynote's going to have 3 points. We're going to look at 9 content chunks that you're going to be able to develop, and you'll do that while we're there. And then you can pull from those 9 anytime that you want to create keynote messages that are going to fit the audience that you're speaking to while remaining true to your overall message. And then from there, if you decide that you want to branch out and do the other things, you're going to be instructed in those as well. If you want to do marketing, if you want to do monetization, we're covering all of that in the 2-day intensive as well. Okay, so 2 options. Number 1, go to milliondollarkeynote.com/MDKI if you want to come to the 2-day intensive, or go to milliondollarkeynote.com/session and book in a 10 to 15 minute call. We'll see where you are, where you want to be. All right, so any questions about anything that I've covered tonight? All right, got some thanks. Good. Would love for you to come if you could. We're going to have a blast. I'm excited. This is kind of interesting. This is a little sidebar. I'm not going to mention any names whatsoever about this. I'm not sure. But I've got some really good people who are already signed up that I think you guys were really blessed to be around. I think you're really going to enjoy a lot of folks that are there. There's business owners, there's coaches, there's teachers, there's even an Olympian that's coming. So that's kind of cool. That's a little bit neat. And that's not somebody I invited. They signed up. And so that's kind of neat as well. So we're going to have a really, really good time. So I'm excited about that. Is there a chance you'll do the intensive another time as well? I can't make the one coming up already at a conference, but want to learn from you. Absolutely, I'm going to be doing that. I would say it's going to be in the first quarter of next year. I would love to do one in January. I'm just not sure if that's going to work out. So we'll see. If it is in January, it will be in a warm part of the States. Good deal. You're welcome. Got to thank you. Really great content. Thank you for sharing. You're welcome. Is this call going to be on replay? It absolutely is. And I'm going to send that out since you're already on my list. I'll send that out and you'll be getting the link tomorrow. All right, guys, good. Listen, if you got any questions, you can follow up with me on Facebook. If you go to facebook.com/$1 Million Keynote, message me there if you want to. Book a session, milliondollarkeynote.com/session, or check out the intensive milliondollarkeynote.com/MDKI. Would love for you to be part. All right, guys, be blessed tonight. As always, speak with passion, or just leave me a note.